With this canopy right here, this actually touches down at different points in the exhibit with different artifacts. And each of these artifacts actually represents a phenomenal change with the way that people and nature are interacting. Okay? So really first off, we start in prehistory. Prehistory, is whatever comes before Spanish contact, because people were not making written records of their history there. The local tribes living in the Los Angeles area were the Gabrielino Pomba tribe. It's interesting because they did not practice a form of agriculture per se. Okay, they didn't practice official agriculture, but they did make sure that their natural resources were not being depleted. They did not overhunt, they did not overgraze, and we have some items that are right here. They're interesting pieces because they're not a federally recognized tribe, so often the pieces that came from their societies were kind of scattered during the various other times of history. But it's important to note, probably the most important thing about the actual exhibit itself is that they were not agriculturalists per se, but they did manicure some of their lands. And so say that if there was an oak tree that was producing a lot of acorns, they would make sure to clear the area around the base of the tree in order that nutrients could get to the roots, and so that the harvest would be fruitful. There were no large amounts of pigs or cows, and so a lot of the acorns that were able to be produced from the tree were able to be harvested. When there was a plant, it's called a chia plant, that was around locally. There weren't so many grasses, so if they were able to clear certain areas around each of these individual plants, they would have a good yield. Okay, so even though they didn't practice agriculture, they were kind of stewards of the landscape, and they didn't try to have a good sustainable relationship, whether it wasn't overhunting or over-harvesting, and that they did very well. But there were some changes afoot, and we will follow the canopy over this way to the first touchdown case right here. Missionization, like I said, had massive impact on the people that were living here, partially because, as kind of symbolized by that lock right there, people were no longer able to function really in the way that they had in the past. So a lot of the recently converted were kept inside of the missions. They were not allowed to leave. They could no longer practice the ways of life that they'd grown accustomed to, and so things began to change. They began to produce different types of art, and what's interesting is that both of these pieces, the Joseph with Child paintings right there, that was actually created by recently converted American Indians, neophytes, is the word that people often use, along with the Santo, which is Our Lady of Sorrows. That was also created by neophytes as well. And these pieces, it's not extremely related to the theme, but I like to call attention to them whenever I bring a tour through here, because it's extremely rare to find pieces that are provenance, that have provenance to the missions, because after secularization happens, so many of these pieces are just kind of spread out all over the place and then lose any type of connection. But these pieces, the museum is really lucky to have, because they are from missions in Southern California. These are actually painted by an English landscape artist by the name of Edwin Deacon. And at the time, the missions had not really struck the public consciousness like they have to this day. Nowadays, if you're in 4th grade, you're going to be making a mission, and so there's such a part of California and education. Back then, nobody really cared about them all that much. And so these paintings were in part, they helped popularize the missions and get people interested in them. And some of them are in pretty rough shape. You can see that some of them are in ruins. But with these paintings and some other interests as well, they got to be popularized again. Edwin Deacon. Do you know missionization? Missionization was thought of by the Spanish to actually cement their territorial hold on the state, what is now the state of California. There were a series of 21 missions that ran up and down state. And what they kind of did is that they tried to convert a lot of the native inhabitants to Catholicism, yet at the same time, in this conversion process, they had untold impact on the land, okay? Because for one, they introduced agriculture, represented by that plow over there. They introduced foreign animals. They also spread a lot of sickness and disease, which did a really good job of wiping out a lot of the native inhabitants, okay? The older forms of kind of pseudo-agriculture that the people practiced, like I was telling you about the clearing of the areas around the bases of the trees, without people that were really interested or able to live off the land, they stopped doing that clearing. So trees were not as fruitful anymore. Pigs were introduced, so a lot of the pigs would have eaten a lot of the acorns that had fallen, forcing people to move into missions. The cattle that were in the area began to eat a lot of the other trees, not trees, but plants and grasses and things like that, preventing a really vibrant